To get Wicked off the ground, its songwriter made one of the boldest moves in Hollywood history. Wicked for Good hits theaters this week, so here's the 125-year story of how it went from page to stage to screen. The story behind Wicked starts in 1900 when L. Frank Baum first published The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Baum was heavily influenced by fairy tale writers the brothers Grimm and Hans Christian Andersen, but he especially took cues from Alice in Wonderland when writing his story about a young girl's adventures in a fantasy world. To make it his own, Baum brought a dash of modern America, exploring themes of farming and industrialization set among cornfields, grand cities, and scarecrows. Baum created the story's witches because he was fascinated by real-life witch hunts in Europe and the American colonies from the 1400s to the 1700s. He then hired artist W. W. Denslow to provide the book's illustrations. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz was an immediate sellout success upon release. In the next 4 decades, it would sell millions of copies, and then it became one of the biggest movies of all time, The Wizard of Oz, in 1939. While it was nominated for 5 Oscars, The Wizard of Oz was not an immediate success. It just did okay at the box office and didn't turn a profit until its re-release in 1949. But then it started airing on TV in the 1950s and it grew into a bona fide classic. The US Library of Congress believes The Wizard of Oz is the most seen film in movie history. Meanwhile, in 1954, Gregory Maguire was born in Albany, New York. He'd grow up to be a children's author. In the early 1990s, he was living in London and he started thinking about the nature of evil. He wondered, are people born wicked or is wickedness thrust upon them? He told CNN in 2008, if everyone was always calling you a bad name, how much of that would you internalize? Which led him to start thinking about the villains in children's literature, and Maguire was obsessed with The Wizard of Oz, book and movie. He watched it every year on TV, and so the idea of exploring the history of the Wicked Witch of the West started to form. He was influenced by Charles Dickens and wanted to infuse the witch's story with the same large scale and broad moral messaging found in Dickens's novels. The Wicked Witch doesn't have a name in the L. Frank Baum book, so Maguire named her Elphaba after Baum, LFB. Maguire released Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West in 1995. It got mostly good reviews, but it was not an immediate sensation. That said, it grew slowly in popularity through the late 90s due to word of mouth. As Maguire explained to the BBC, every year it would sell more than the year before. It was the genuine definition of a sleeper hit. And once word started to get around, Hollywood came calling, specifically Demi Moore. Moore was a big actor at the time, and with her production company, she optioned Wicked's book rights. But she wasn't the only one who wanted it. Whoopi Goldberg had also tried hard to acquire the book, while Claire Danes, Salma Hayek, and Laurie Metcalf had also expressed interest. But Moore and her producer, Suzanne Todd, won out, and they brought it to Universal, which was being run by Mark Platt at the time. Moore was going to play Elphaba, and they imagined Michelle Pfeiffer, Emma Thompson, or Nicole Kidman as Glinda. They hired Beauty and the Beast and Lion King co-writer Linda Wolverton to write the Wicked script, and then Back to the Future director Robert Zemeckis was interested in directing. It should be noted that at this point, it was not going to be a musical, though Wolverton, coming from a musical background, thought maybe it should be. Meanwhile, Broadway songwriter Stephen Schwartz, the creator of Pippin and Godspell, was on vacation when he learned about the book, and he immediately knew it could be a great musical. So he started looking into how he could get the rights, before he had even read the novel. In 1998, he got a meeting with Gregory Maguire and persuaded him to sign over the stage rights, and then he set a very bold meeting at Universal and begged them not to make the movie. Mark Platt recalled Schwartz's impassioned plea for the studio to back a stage musical instead. Could you imagine going into Universal and saying, don't make a movie with Robert Zemeckis and Demi Moore? Instead, back a years-long process of a Broadway musical that I'm going to write? But Platt was impressed and he agreed, making Universal a producer on this upcoming show. The Moore Zemeckis movie version eventually stalled out. Stephen Schwartz wrote all new music for this potential show, of course, but there is one major allusion to The Wizard of Oz hidden in the score. Elphaba's musical motif, Unlimited, uses the first 7 notes of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Schwartz then enlisted playwright and My So-Called Life creator Winnie Holtzman to write the book. Together they made significant changes from the novel. They wrote the role of Glinda with Kristen Chenoweth in mind, while Stephanie J. Block played Elphaba in the pre-Broadway workshops. Adina Menzel, hot off Rent, then joined the development process. Block would eventually play Elphaba on tour and as a replacement casting on Broadway. Production designer Eugene Lee created the musical set and took inspiration from W. W. Denslow's original illustrations for the Oz novels, while also borrowing Maguire's concept of the story being told through a giant clock. Wicked had an out-of-town trial run in San Francisco in May and June of 2003, and it received mixed reviews from critics, meaning they had to make changes. They spent 3 months revising the musical, and Holtzman said that time made the show work. And one big change they made was swapping Fiero's intro song from Which Way Is the Party to Dancing Through Life. Critics had also said Glinda was overshadowing Elphaba, so they increased Elphaba's presence in the story. And you know who got to see it early in San Francisco? A 24-year-old John M. Chu. Universal and the show's other backers invested $14 million to mount the production on Broadway, and then Wicked began previews at the Gershwin Theater on October 8th, 2003, before opening officially on October 30th. It once again got mixed reviews, but it connected with audiences and quickly became a smash hit. Wicked broke even in just 15 months, grossing $56 million in its first year on Broadway. Wicked was nominated for 10 Tony Awards. Menzel won for for Best Actress, while the show also took home Best Scenic Design and Best Costume Design, but it famously lost Best Book, Original Score, and Best Musical to Avenue Q. But still, Wicked grew into a record-breaking Broadway mainstay that's still running today. By 2016, it had grossed $1 billion, becoming just the third musical ever to do so, and a year later, it became the second highest-grossing Broadway show ever behind The Lion King. In the final week of 2024, it became the first Broadway show to ever gross more than $5 million in 1 week. It also spawned a long-running London production, several national and worldwide tours, plus standing productions all over the globe. The idea of turning Wicked the musical into a movie was first floated in 2004. In July 2010, it was reported that J.J. Abrams, James Mangold, Ryan Murphy, and Rob Marshall were being considered as director. During this time period, Menzel and Chenoweth were considered to reprise their roles, and then Lea Michele and Amy Adams were also rumored as potentials. Then in 2012, Stephen Daldry was attached as director, with Winnie Holtzman writing the script. In 2016, Universal announced a December 20th, 2019 release date for the Wicked movie. Daldry was reportedly considering Lady Gaga and Shawn Mendes for Elphaba and Fiyero at that time, but by 2018, Universal could not get the project together, and instead gave its release date to Cats, which was a notorious bomb. But still, Universal was committed to Wicked, giving it a new release date of December 22nd, 2021. And then the pandemic hit, delaying the project once again. Daldry finally dropped out, but in February 2021, Deadline reported that John M. Chu would direct. Winnie Holtzman is the sole credited writer on the movie, but Dana Fox worked on it as well, and Last of Us showrunner Craig Mazin contributed additional literary material. Schwartz wrote 2 new songs, The Girl in the Bubble and No Place Like Home. Filming was supposed to start in 2021 in Atlanta, but then it got postponed to spring of 2022. Dove Cameron, Renee Rapp, and Amanda Seyfried all auditioned for Glinda, but Ariana Grande got the role after a lifetime of manifesting, stalking Mark Platt, and going through 5 auditions. Jonathan Bailey, meanwhile, beat out Cooper Koch, Nick Jonas, and Joe Jonas for Fiyero. There's no verifiable information right now as to who else auditioned for Elphaba, but of course, Cynthia Erivo got the part. After all the delays, production finally kicked off in England in December 2022. But before production began, Chu and Universal announced that the musical would be split into 2 movies. Because, quote, it became impossible to wrestle the story into a single film without doing some real damage to it. The combined budget of both films was $300 to $350 million. Filming was then interrupted in July 2023 by the actors' strike. It later resumed and concluded in January 2024. Wicked Part 1 hit theaters November 22nd, 2024, grossing $759 million worldwide, meaning it likely turned a profit against the budget of both films with just that first one. It's the highest grossing musical film adaptation of all time. Critics liked it. Today, 88% of the 403 reviews assessed by Rotten Tomatoes are positive. It was nominated for 10 Oscars total, including Best Picture, and it won Best Costume Design and Best Production Design. The follow-up film, Wicked for Good, got a release date of November 21st, 2025. Will there be more Wicked movies? The entire show has been adapted, but Maguire went on to write 9 Wicked books total. When Ariana Grande was asked a question recently, she said, "I don't know," but her castmate Bowen Yang was more definitive, saying, "I think we leave it here." Thanks for watching this video. If you've made it to the end, drop a toss in the comments. For more movie histories, check out the attached playlist and subscribe to my newsletter for the latest pop culture news.